When I opened my eyes that morning, the world had changed. Floating above every person's head was a number. My mother's displayed 9,450. My father's showed 8,639. The housekeeper and our gardener had much smaller figures, some in the hundreds, others barely reaching double digits. I thought I was losing my mind. Grabbing my car keys, I drove through the city streets, studying every stranger I passed. Most people had single-digit numbers hovering above them. Anything over 10 was rare. By the time I returned home, something had shifted. Both my parents' numbers had dropped by exactly 1. A chill ran down my spine as a terrifying possibility occurred to me. Were these the remaining number of times I would see them before they were gone forever? Later that afternoon, I ran into my longtime rival, Adrian West. The number above his head read 3. Just 3 meetings left. The thought made my stomach twist. To test my theory, I showed up at the West estate the next morning. Adrian's parents greeted me with surprised enthusiasm, practically dragging me into their sitting room. I stared at the numbers above their heads, both hovering near 2,000. How could I be destined to see his parents thousands more times while only having 3 encounters left with Adrian himself? Adrian descended the stairs, adjusting his collar. The number above his head had dropped to 2. My heart hammered against my ribs. I set down my teacup and stood abruptly, grabbing his arm before I could think better of it. Adrian, are you planning to travel somewhere? Moving to another country? He looked down at my grip on his sleeve, confusion crossing his features. No. Why would you think that? I leaned closer, lowering my voice as the household staff lingered nearby. Are you free today? I'm taking you to get a complete medical checkup. Adrian might have spent our entire childhood tormenting me with pranks and practical jokes, but the thought of him suddenly dying from an undetected illness made my chest tighten painfully. His expression softened slightly before he laughed, reaching out to tap my forehead gently. I just had a full physical 3 weeks ago. Everything came back perfect. Want me to email you the results? On the sofa, his parents exchanged meaningful glances. They remembered my flat rejection of their proposed arranged marriage 6 months ago. Now here I was, acting like I couldn't bear to let him out of my sight. Adrian, I'm staying with you today. Wherever you go, I go. After making that declaration, I ignored everyone's bewildered stares and pulled him out the door, my arm locked firmly through his. I became his shadow. When he arrived at his office for morning meetings, I stood outside the glass conference room walls, watching him like a hawk. His assistant eventually brought me a chair and coffee, looking concerned I might collapse from standing so long. When Adrian excused himself to use the restroom, I followed him right to the door. He turned around, looking helpless. I think the hallway is an appropriate stopping point, don't you? I grabbed his jacket sleeve, doubling down. This is your private executive suite. I've seen your baby photos. What's the big deal? Adrian looked like he didn't know whether to laugh or be concerned. Exactly how high were the stakes of this dare? Who did you lose to? Rachel. He thought this was all because of a bet. But I couldn't stay glued to him forever. If he needed privacy, was I really going to stand there watching? I still had 1 meeting left as a cushion. In those few seconds, 1,000 scenarios flashed through my mind. Then Adrian's voice broke through. Fine. If you want to come in, come in. If you're embarrassed, why should I be? He reached for my hand. I froze, yanked back, and looked away. Actually, never mind. Adrian let out a snort. Can't handle it after all. As the door closed behind him, panic flared in my chest. I pulled out my phone and video called him. After a few seconds, he picked up. The screen showed the ceiling, and I could hear water running. Adrian, point the camera at your face. At my sharp command, he turned off the faucet, dried his hands, and slowly raised the phone. Is this just for today, or is this my new reality? In the frame, his eyebrows were slightly raised, but there wasn't genuine anger in his eyes. When he finally emerged from the restroom, the number above his head was still 2. I let out a silent breath of relief. The numbers didn't drop based on physical distance but rather on time passing or encounters ending. As long as I stayed with him, the count wouldn't decrease. I stayed vigilant, checking the space above his head every 30 seconds. By the time the workday ended, my eyes were twitching from the strain. As we walked out of West Industries headquarters, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down, revealing my best friend Rachel's grinning face. "Caught you red-handed." Tonight was supposed to be our weekly dinner, but I'd cancelled via text so I could keep an eye on Adrian. I hadn't expected her to track me down. Adrian glanced at me, his tone carrying a hint of possessiveness. "I thought you were having dinner with me tonight. What's she doing here?" I stood frozen, staring at the number above Rachel's head. My heart sank. Rachel was my ride or die, my best friend since elementary school. Why was her number only 15? I immediately yanked open the car door and slid in, pulling Adrian in after me. "Change of plans. I'm treating you both to the Hot Springs Resort. Spa night and a massive dinner on me." I sat between them in the back seat and gave the driver the resort's address. The driver looked at Rachel, clearly confused, but started the car without argument. What was happening? Even Rachel's family driver had over 500 meetings left with me. Was my best friend hiding something? In the car, Rachel nudged me with her elbow. "Since when are you and the Ice Prince on such good terms? You used to avoid him like the plague." Before I could answer, Adrian spoke up. "She has you to thank for it. Apparently, Emma has decided she can't bear to be an inch away from me." Rachel looked lost. "Me?" I grabbed her hand, giving her a pointed look. "Don't you remember that bet we made last week? You dared me to stick to Adrian like glue for 24 hours. To her credit, my best friend caught on instantly. "Oh, right. Of course. I've been so busy lately, it totally slipped my mind." I narrowed my eyes. "Busy with what exactly?" Rachel sighed, her expression shifting between nostalgia and longing. "My dad and stepmother had a talk with me. They're sending me abroad for graduate school. Something about putting actual knowledge in this pretty head and learning independence." Alarm bells rang in my head. Abroad? Since when? When are you leaving? Which school? Are you even coming back? Rachel jumped at my intensity. "I just found out myself. My stepmother already handled the applications. I leave right after New Year's, but it's only a one-year program with summer breaks. I'll be back. I'm not exactly built for a life of bland food and cold weather." I did the math. Given how often we saw each other, 15 meetings would take us right up to New Year's. Was that it? Would I never see her again after she left? I was about to say something when Adrian, who had been resting his eyes, spoke up in a low, casual voice. "Your stepmother seems very motivated to get you out of the country." Rachel nodded. "Yeah, but my dad agrees. He thinks it'll be good for me." Adrian opened his eyes slightly, a small knowing smile playing on his lips. "Didn't your stepmother just have another baby boy this year?" The more I thought about it, the more suspicious it felt. Rachel's mother had passed away years ago, and her father had married a much younger woman who managed to produce an heir within a year. Now, 5 years into the marriage, they had a second son. Once we got to the resort and changed into our robes, I pulled Rachel into the mineral pool and grabbed her shoulders. "Rachel, listen to me. Do not go. Find any excuse to turn them down. Even if you want to study abroad, wait until after New Year's and pick the school and country yourself. Do not let your stepmother touch your travel plans." Rachel blinked, her damp lashes framing confused eyes. "Why?" I looked at her innocent face and decided to tell her everything. The numbers, the meetings, what it all meant. By the time I finished, her face was pale. She lunged forward and hugged me. "Emma, please tell me you're just trying to scare me. I'm not that creative, Ratch." Rachel was always the high-strung type. She immediately grabbed her phone from the pool's edge and called her dad. She went through the whole repertoire of crying, faking illness, and throwing a full tantrum. Luckily, her dad was soft-hearted. He finally gave in, agreeing to postpone the graduate school discussion until after the holidays. The second she hung up, I saw it. The number above her head started spinning, climbing higher and higher until it hit 20,000 plus. My eyes widened. I stood up in the pool, splashing water everywhere. If the numbers could change, then Adrian could be saved too. I threw on my robe and sprinted toward the men's section of the spa. Adrian was just finishing up, drying his damp hair with a towel. I stopped right in front of him, bent over and gasping for air. Running that fast. Did something happen? He teased. Normally, I would have had a sharp comeback ready, but when I saw the two above his head still sitting there cold and unmoving, I didn't know whether to feel relieved or devastated. What did I have to do to make his number explode? As the question hit me, I froze. Was the thought of only seeing Adrian twice more really so devastating that I was willing to do anything to change it? The realization that I might actually lose him made my heart drop. I stepped closer, closing the distance between us. Adrian, let's stay here tonight. Don't go back. It's the weekend anyway. You don't have to be at the office tomorrow morning. As I racked my brain for ways to convince him to share a room with me, he did something unexpected. He reached out and ruffled my hair. Sure. Actually, after tomorrow, I won't have to clock in at West Industries ever again. I blinked, certain I'd misheard him. I looked up and saw a complex, unreadable expression in his eyes. I reached out and grabbed his wrist, my voice tight. What do you mean? You're bored of being CEO. You want to go find yourself or something? Adrian looked down at my hand on his wrist for a long time without saying a word. And then the two above his head suddenly jumped to 10. I blinked. I wasn't seeing things. Just holding his hand increased our meetings. I grabbed his other hand, holding them both tight. Adrian's gaze flickered, and the number climbed to 15. I decided to go all in. I let go of his hands and threw my arms around him in a full hug. I could feel his heart thumping against mine, steady and rhythmic. I closed my eyes, counted to 5, and pulled back to look at the number. 30. It was growing exponentially. I was about to escalate when Adrian's fingers gently caught my chin. Emma. His voice was a low warning, and his eyes had darkened. I held my breath, the triumphant grin freezing on my face. What exactly is above my head that you've been staring at all day? Under the intense heat of his gaze, I opened and closed my mouth, unable to find an explanation that didn't sound insane. I pivoted. You haven't answered me. What did you mean by not being CEO anymore? Adrian slowly released my chin, his tone turning nonchalant. Because I'm not a West, not by blood. The words hit me like a physical weight. Adrian, the golden boy, the only son of the West Empire for 25 years, wasn't the biological heir. Seeing my stunned silence, Adrian gave a small wry smile and took my hand, leading me toward the garden. The real West heir is coming home in a few days. They're throwing a welcome gala before New Year's. I figured you'd find out when the invitation arrived at your house. I let him lead me. By the time we sat down in a private dining room, Rachel had caught up to us. The table was covered in delicacies I'd ordered, but I'd lost my appetite. Adrian's number had hit 30. We had more time. I didn't have to worry about forcing him to sleep in my room tonight. When Rachel and I got back to our suite, I gave her a huge hug. Her number didn't budge. I leaned in and gave her a quick peck on the cheek. Emma, what the hell? Rachel turned bright red, backing away. I like guys, strictly guys. I ignored her, staring at the 20,000 plus above her head. It was stuck. Why did the physical contact trick work on Adrian but not on Rachel? When I got home from the resort, I smothered my mom with hugs and kisses. Her number didn't move an inch other than the natural daily decrease. That night, my dad came home from the office and confirmed the rumor about the West family. My mom gasped, clutching her chest. I always said those two were a bit plain looking. How could they have produced a son as gorgeous as Adrian? Keep that talk in the house, my dad warned. Don't let the Wests hear you. But my mom was on a roll. So what's the plan? They bring in the biological son and kick Adrian out. What does the real son look like? Did you see a photo? What kind of family raised him? My dad put down his fork. The Wests are one of the most powerful families in the state. How many families can really compete with that pedigree? My mom sighed. Well, at least Adrian is a grown man. He's brilliant. He'll be fine on his own. I sat there quietly, eavesdropping, until my mom nudged me. You're usually the chatterbox at dinner. Why are you so quiet about the scandal of the century? I shrugged. The switched at birth trope is so overplayed. I've read it in 1,000 novels. It's boring. My mom suddenly seemed to remember something. She leaned over and cupped my face. God, we almost forced you into that engagement with him. Thank heaven you fought us on it, or this would be so awkward right now. I frowned. Mom, even if he isn't a biological West, he's still Adrian. It's not like he's suddenly a different person. Don't be such a snob. My parents exchanged a look of pure shock. My darling daughter, what has gotten into you? You're actually defending Adrian. Did you forget the time he told you those ghost stories in middle school? You had nightmares for 3 days. Just thinking about that made me grit my teeth. I haven't forgotten. And I haven't forgotten that I tricked him into eating a chocolate bar that was actually soap to get him back. I also remember tying his shoelaces to his desk during a nap in high school, making him take the whole desk down with him when he tried to stand up. A wicked smile touched my lips. The gala. The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom was packed with elite guests, but Adrian was nowhere to be found. Instead, in the center of the crowd, I saw the man of the hour, Daniel Shaw, now officially Daniel West. Daniel stood between the West parents in a tailored suit. He was tan with an athletic build, sturdy, but his features were more average. What really caught my eye was the number above his head, a dazzling 5,998. Did you hear? Daniel was on a competitive swim team in Southern California, Rachel whispered, leaning in with a glass of champagne. I raised an eyebrow. Is athletic prowess a West trait I missed? Not really. Apparently, his adoptive parents were fishermen. He grew up working on boats and diving. I guess it builds muscle. I looked at Daniel and gave a dry laugh. Explains the tan. An image flashed through my mind of Adrian wearing heavy waders and a straw hat, bent over a bucket of crabs on a pier somewhere. Emma, are you okay? Rachel asked. You have goosebumps. I shook off the image. Rachel, Daniel's number is almost as high as my parents'. Rachel gasped. Seriously? I nodded. Well, damn. Even if you don't marry him, it looks like you two are destined to be in each other's lives for a long time. I didn't reply. She tried to comfort me. Hey, it's fine. He's got small eyes and a bit of a wide mouth, but he looks healthy and honest. Plus, he's a billionaire now. Dating him wouldn't be the worst thing. Just then, a smooth, familiar voice spoke from behind us. What destiny are we talking about? I spun around. Adrian was there, dressed in a charcoal suit, his hair perfectly styled. He looked sharper, more dangerous than usual. But the sharpest thing was the number above his head. It was 1. I almost laughed out of sheer frustration. This guy's number was like a prepaid phone plan. If he didn't top it off, it just expired. Out of everyone I knew, he was the only one whose numbers defied all logic and changed without warning. Rachel was about to say something, but I grabbed Adrian's hand and started pulling him toward the exit. You're coming with me. We need to talk. I pulled him through the crowd, ignored the curious stares, and led him all the way to the hotel's rooftop terrace. I let go of his hand, turned around, and glared at the one above his head before looking him in the eye. Okay, Adrian, what's the plan? Are you leaving the Wests? Leaving the city? Going back to your biological parents to sell seafood and ghost all your old friends? The wind caught Adrian's tie, and he gave a small weary smile. He nodded slowly. Yeah, that's pretty much the plan. Something inside me snapped like a cable fraying until it finally gave way. A cold draft caught the gap in my shawl, and I shivered. Seeing me shake, Adrian took off his jacket and stepped toward me to drape it over my shoulders. As he started to pull away, I grabbed him again. What is it? He asked, looking genuinely lost. I didn't give him a chance to think. I grabbed his face with both hands and kissed him hard. The only sounds were the wind and the thunderous beat of my own heart. After a moment, I felt his arm wrap around my waist. I pulled back instantly and looked up. 50. The pattern was clear. I didn't waste a second. I went in for another kiss. But this time, his hand caught my jaw, stopping me. His other hand tightened around my waist, pulling me flush against him. His warmth radiated through my dress, and his breath was warm against my skin. I had actually initiated a makeout session with Adrian West. "Emma, what is this?" His voice was lower, huskier than before. He traced my lower lip with his thumb. I decided to go for the nuclear option. "Adrian, move in with me. Marry into my family. I'll make sure you keep living the high life. You won't have to worry about money. You won't have to go pick crabs on a boat, and you won't have to work in the sun." Adrian's eyes cleared, and then they crinkled at the corners. He looked like he was trying not to laugh. "Are you proposing to me?" "Yeah." "What's your answer?" He looked at me, his gaze so tender it felt like I was melting. "You're very bossy, Emma." I didn't respond because the number above his head was skyrocketing. In seconds, it went from double digits to hundreds. As I was mentally celebrating, Adrian spoke again, his voice slow and deliberate. "But I only marry people who actually like me. Do you like me? I thought you've been avoiding me like the plague since high school. You seem to hate me. And besides, 6 months ago, you were the one who refused the engagement. Why the change of heart?" He paused. "Look at me, Emma. Why do you keep looking at the top of my head?" I guiltily dropped my gaze. I didn't know which of his questions to tackle first. Luckily, a group of security guards burst onto the roof, saving me from answering. Seeing us wrapped around each other, one of them coughed into his hand and spoke into his radio. "Found Miss Emma. She's on the roof. She's currently occupied with Mr. West." By the time we went back down, the party had moved outdoors for live music. Rachel's 5-year-old half-brother, Tommy, saw us and pointed a chubby finger at Adrian. "Mom, look, it's the fake one." Rachel's stepmother quickly covered the boy's mouth, giving us a polite, hollow smile. "Kids say the silliest things. I'm sure Mr. West doesn't mind." Adrian didn't flinch. I looked at the kid's perfectly groomed bowl cut and rolled my eyes at his mother. Kids say what they hear at home. It's a shame when parents forget to teach manners. The stepmother's face hardened. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so blunt. "Miss Emma, are you suggesting I'm a bad mother?" "If the shoe fits, Mrs. Hayes." I never liked her or her spoiled brat. Every time I visited Rachel, Tommy would either throw toys at me or wipe his sticky hands on my designer clothes. If it weren't for Rachel, I would have snapped a long time ago. The stepmother sneered, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Well, children are honest. He is a fake West, isn't he? That's just a fact." I knew there were plenty of vultures in this room waiting to tear Adrian down, but doing it in front of me was a mistake. Adrian held me back as I started to step forward. He walked calmly over to the mother and son, leaned down, and smiled at the boy. "Hey there, little guy. You should tell your mom to get you a different haircut. That bowl cut is really embarrassing. People are going to laugh at you." The kid's lip wobbled, and then he burst into full-blown wailing. I laughed out loud. The stepmother looked horrified, pulling her son back. "You're a grown man. How can you pick on a child? I guess your true colors are showing. Low-class breeding will always reveal itself." I stepped up, delivering the final blow. "What's the matter? You love honesty when it's your kid talking, but you can't handle it when it's about his hair." I tucked my arm through Adrian's and led him away. I grabbed a petit four from a passing tray and pressed it into his hand. "Don't listen to that brat. Adrian, I've got your back. Being part of my family is a sweet deal. Trust me." Adrian looked at the little cake, then at me, a soft curve touching his lips. "I haven't said yes yet." I looked at the number above his head. It had surged past 5,000. "You will," I said confidently. I happily ate my cake while Adrian watched me, reaching out to wipe a smudge of frosting from the corner of my mouth. It was a completely natural gesture. Nearby, Rachel's jaw had dropped. She pulled me aside the moment she could. "Emma, I knew something was up at the spa. What is going on with you and the Ice Prince?" "We're getting married," I said, echoing Adrian's casual tone. Rachel was vibrating with shock. What? When? How did I miss this entire character arc? I sighed. I feel bad for him. He had 25 years of good life, and then boom, he's a commoner. He was going to leave the city, leave everything behind. I couldn't just let him go. You feel bad for him? Rachel looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Emma, are you serious? Did you not hear? West Industries is putting Adrian in charge of their entire overseas division. He's keeping his equity, his bonuses, everything. His net worth is actually going up. The only thing he's losing is the West bloodline. He's probably the most eligible bachelor in the country right now. Now it was my turn to be stunned. Wait, really? I overheard the parents talking earlier. He's too valuable to the company to let go. I looked over at Adrian, who was currently the center of a circle of investors, looking every bit the powerful executive. That silver-tongued fox. He'd let me believe he was going to be a penniless fisherman just to get a rise out of me. But wait. Even if he was testing me, the numbers didn't lie. Before I kissed him, his number really was 1. He really was prepared to walk away from me forever. Our eyes met across the room. His number was now almost as high as my father's, and it was still ticking upward. The stubborn man. He'd clearly been won over by a single kiss, but he was still playing hard to get. The epilogue. After the gala, the news broke that Adrian was staying on as head of international operations. Everyone realized the West parents couldn't bear to lose their star protege, especially since Daniel, the biological son, had no interest in business and was currently training for the Olympic trials. Adrian was busier than ever, but he called and texted constantly. He sent flowers, jewelry, and asked me out every chance he got. I played it cool. I replied to his texts politely, accepted the gifts graciously, but turned down every single date. After a month, he finally snapped. On the phone after a long day, his voice dropped to a low, dangerous register. Emma, are you forgetting something? I knew exactly what he was talking about. Nope. I remember proposing to you a month ago. There was a long silence on the other end. And you didn't say yes, I said cheerfully. Since the famous Mr. West has plenty of money and fame now, I figured you wouldn't need someone to take care of you anymore. I heard a soft laugh, but it had a distinct edge to it. Oh, so the proposal wasn't sincere. Good to know. I sensed a trap. What do you mean, good? Adrian's voice returned to that effortless lazy drawl. I'm calling to say goodbye. I'm leaving next week. Unless it's strictly business, I don't plan on coming back to the country for a long time. I narrowed my eyes. Playing the leaving card again. This arrogant, stubborn man. Would it kill him to just say he loved me? I had recently gone to my basement storage and found my 18th birthday gift from him. Hidden under the velvet lining of the music box was a diamond ring. He'd been holding on to that secret for 5 years while I threw his gifts in storage without a second thought. If I'd known back then how he felt, I probably would have been terrified. I would have thought he was playing another one of his psychological games. But at 23, finding that ring felt like the most perfect timing in the world. I wanted to see how long he could keep up the act. Wow, leaving so soon. Why don't we meet up tomorrow so I can give you a proper send-off? A man who was actually leaving wouldn't have a meeting count of 9,999 plus. A man who was already mine, however, the numbers didn't lie. We met at the golf club. Adrian was dressed in light casual wear, wearing aviators, standing in the winter sun like a tall, sturdy pine tree. And above that tree was a number of 9,999 plus. The plus was key. It meant we had reached the limit of what the display could show. At a rate of 1 meeting a day, that was at least 27 years of guaranteed time together. I was in a great mood. I was sinking putts left and right. Adrian leaned on his putter, watching me. My flight is at 11 on Tuesday morning. I finished a swing and gave him a bright smile. I know. You mentioned it 3 times. I'll be there to wave goodbye. Then I paused, genuinely confused. Wait, you're flying to London, right? Actually, plans changed. I'm resigning from West Industries. I'm giving up the assets and going back to my roots. I'm going to work the docks, maybe start a small seafood distribution business. Back to the life I was supposed to have. I pointed a finger at my temple. Are you feeling okay in there? Adrian shrugged, looking perfectly at peace. I know you don't get it, but this is the life I should have lived. It's time to put things back on track, Emma. We were never supposed to be in the same world. Despite his tough speech, his number didn't drop a single digit. I put my hands on my hips and sighed dramatically. Life is so unpredictable. You're right. We shouldn't have overlapped. The person I should be with is Daniel. Adrian stiffened visibly. I leaned into it. Once you're gone, maybe I'll give him a call. Arranged marriage, keeping things on track. I could do that too. He finally broke. He stepped toward me, his face dark. You wouldn't marry me, but you'd marry him. I took off my sunglasses and blinked innocently. I was willing to marry you, but you didn't say yes. I'm a busy woman, Adrian. I can't wait forever. Adrian let out a frustrated laugh, tossing his glasses aside. Was that proposal even real? You were just pitying me. If you actually liked me, why did you ignore the ring I gave you years ago? Why did you reject the engagement 6 months ago? I laughed. I took off my glove and handed it to the caddy, then walked over and tapped Adrian's chest. Adrian, look at this. On my left hand, a heart-shaped diamond ring glittered in the sun. 5 years in a basement hadn't dimmed its spark one bit. Adrian froze. He looked at the ring, then at me, completely speechless. I wrapped my arms around his neck and whispered in his ear. If you want to win the girl, you have to actually use your words. You have a mouth, don't you? Adrian let out a long shaky breath, his arms tightening around my waist. I used it once. It made you cry and hide for 3 days. I laughed again. He pulled back, searching my face. Emma, you're serious? You'll marry me. I punched him lightly on the shoulder. We almost missed it, you idiot. If I hadn't gained this weird superpower, my own density probably would have let you walk out of my life forever. I wouldn't have realized how much you meant to me until you were gone. I wanted to tease him more, but he leaned down and kissed me so deeply I had to lean back to keep my balance. After New Year's, Rachel actually followed through on her plan to go to graduate school. She said things had gotten tense at home. Her dad and stepmother were fighting constantly. Apparently, the stepmother had offended the West family, and several family projects were suddenly hitting major roadblocks. Her dad, who used to spoil his young son, was now constantly complaining about how the boy was being ruined by indulgence. He'd started taking Rachel into his study for long talks about the future of the company. You know, Emma, Rachel said at the airport, looking unusually serious. I think I was really immature before. When I come back, I'm going to take over the family business. I'm going to make it bigger than ever. I looked at the 20,000 plus above her head and nodded. Most people only care if you fly high. I'm the only one worried you'll work yourself to death. Rachel laughed and hugged me. In the 3rd year of our marriage, the West family had another reason to celebrate. Daniel had won gold at the World Championships, becoming a national hero. With Daniel in the sports world and Adrian unofficially leading the business side, the West became the most influential family in the city. Eventually, the numbers started to fade. I couldn't see them over people's heads anymore. One night, as I was drifting off to sleep in Adrian's arms, I heard him whisper against my ear. Emma, did you know? During that year when I was most desperate, I actually went to see a fortune teller. I asked if we were destined to be together. She told me that if there was a spark of fate left, there would be a sign. Something unexplainable would pull us back together. And the very next day, you wouldn't leave my side. Thank you for coming back to me. You gave me hope when I had none left. I woke up a little, blinking sleepily. It was funny how life worked. A connection could vanish in a second, or it could be forged in an instant. But fate finally let me hold on to the one person I was never supposed to lose.